Hey, what's up, everyone? So, last night after I ended my stream, I waited for the beta patch notes for quite a long time, and then I decided, it's getting too late. I might as well go to bed. And so I went to sleep thinking we'll get patch notes later today. And lo and behold, we did. But here's what I didn't expect. I did not expect it to wreak havoc across the Paladin Discord yet again. I'll be honest, I'm a little worried that last time we had the Red Paladin Discord shut down. This time it might be the Holy Paladin. I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen, but I sure am concerned about that. Let's start getting into the beta patch notes. I will get to the Holy Paladin at a later stage, but let's go in the order that Blizzard has released them, starting with Death Knights, specifically Unholy Death Knights. Now, if you look at the Unholy Death Knight changes, what they've basically received is a set of bug fixes. These are positive bug fixes, meaning that as a result of these fixes, we can expect their damage to go up a bit, which is a good thing. They have been rather middling in terms of performance. And I think more specifically, if we read it over here, it says fix an issue that caused festering sites debuff effect to stop functioning when diseases get extended from any source. This is going to be a pretty major fix because festering sites debuff was actually doing a fair bit of damage. So the fact that this has been fixed will definitely help it. They've also fixed a part of their season 1 bonus. Basically, it reads Scourge Strike now grants its runic power when the class set 4 piece makes it cost no rune. So this is again a net positive. And then again, like Forbidden Knowledge rank 4 will now stop summoning a lesser ghoul to putrefy when the pet is set to passive. So all of these changes are a net positive for Unholy, and we can definitely see an improvement in their performance. Next up, let's talk about Evoker. Now, the Evoker changes that we see over here are what I'd like to call inconsequential, for lack of a better term. Now, why do I say that? Well, they've basically addressed the Scale Commander hero talent, and right now on the beta, we're playing only Flame Shaper, whether it's in AoE or in single target, in raids, Mythic Plus, what have you. Flame Shaper is basically the king for evokers, and fixing Scale Commander isn't really doing that much, and we'll see just why that is. So if you look at the first part here, the dev notes say that we're reducing the number of times Deep Breath is available through Wing Leader for Scale Commander to lessen the amount of time spent airborne, which can be difficult to play. I completely agree. If you're a new player, you might struggle with it a bit because you have to think about your positioning. Because before you go airborne, you have to think about where you're going to land. And by the time you land, what's the mechanic that's going to be happening over there? Because you don't want to be in a situation where you essentially cast deep breath and land right into a big swirly which one shots you, right? So this definitely helps. I think reducing the number of casts of this is definitely going to help. But I think like there needs to be a more intuitive way to play this spell. Like it sounds amazing that you're a dragon and you're basically going airborne and you're casting your deep breath on the targets below. It's basically like an air raid across your enemies. Visually looks amazing. Practically though, doesn't look that great. It doesn't feel that great when you end up, sitting in a mechanic. Now I get that it's a part of the skill expression for the class, but for newer players, maybe have like an alternate way of doing this. It could be like a choice node. For example, like we've seen multiple times like this had happened for Shadow Priests when they had Shadow Crash back in the day, where they had a choice node in between. The Shadow Crash always goes on your target, or you get like a targeting reticule where you can sort of position where you want to. Now, objectively, from a min-max perspective, the reticule was way better. But for somebody new getting into Shadow Priest for the first time without much experience with like, how the reticule should be placed, because it used to have a travel time and everything, that choice node offered an easier way or a simpler gameplay for somebody just starting out as a Shadow Priest. And I feel like something similar needs to happen with this spell as well. There's like one way of doing this where you are basically manually choosing how your deep breath plays out, but there needs to be like a simpler, more automatic way for newer players to get into until they get a hang of things on the spec, right? Maybe it doesn't do as much damage as a manual version, but something. The next one is they've got some buffs over here. Wing Leader now causes bombardments to reduce the cooldown of deep breath by 0.5 seconds was 1 second. up to 1.5 seconds was 3 seconds. So this is basically on the back of the dev notes up here, basically reducing the frequency of this, right? You get lesser CDR, meaning fewer deep breath casts, and therefore, you know, fewer casts means lesser risk and less clunky playstyle, essentially. Then they've got Might of the Black Dragonflight, increases black spell damage by 30%, which was 20% in the past. And Refined Essence now increases Essence ability by 25%, was 15%. This is not going to change anything for Scale Commander. It just basically means that you're still going to be playing Flame Shaper, whether it's raids or keys or whatever scenario, hell, even delves, right? Yeah, the devs need to do more if they want to bring Scale Commander in line with Flame Shaper. All I hope is that they don't nerf Flame Shaper in the process, because right now I feel that Flame Shaper is in a decent place. I wouldn't want them to nerf Flame Shaper. Instead, I would like them to buff up Scale Commander a bit so that it's more competitive with Flame Shaper. And probably the biggest change has been for preservation. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's not. They've basically said that temporal anomaly no longer shows on raid frames. I don't know what to do with that information. It's a statement. There's no reasoning as to why it is or it is not, as is with pretty much everything else. Like the way Blizzard has gone about managing the information on raid frames seems a bit convoluted. I would really be happy to hear more about, okay, we've decided that XYZ buffs will be visible and ABC will not be visible because this is our reasoning, and then offer us an opportunity to give some feedback as to why it is actually important to see something or not see something on the raid frames, right? Instead of just giving us a list that, okay, we've decided here are the buffs you can see, here are the buffs you can't see, deal with it, we don't care. So yeah, I dragged out like a one-line change into a rant. I didn't mean to do that, but it's just a little bit frustrating how some of these add-on changes have been handled. Next up, we've got Beast Mastery Hunter. Uh, Dire Command and the Pack Leader Bear will now properly advance Hunt Master's Call. So this is essentially a fix. So, something good for Beast Mastery. Dire Command now benefits from bad luck protection. That's again a good thing. You will not be as RNG with this particular effect. And then Huntmaster's Call has been updated. Now summons Hearty or Fenrir at 8 stacks, was 6. This is basically a nerf. And I'm not sure how much it'll be at like an overall DPS level, but it essentially means that you'll get fewer procs of Hearty or Fenrir, which will, and they do a decent bit of damage for Beast Mastery. So it's going to be a nerf for sure. And then finally, we've got fixed an issue where Fortitude of the Bear's damage reduction effect would persist when switching pets or pet specializations. I mean, I haven't really heard of anyone really abusing this on beta, but I'm glad that this issue has been fixed, so that's a good thing. We've got one line for Arcane Mage, which is highly unexpected. So far on the beta, we've been used to, in fact, not just the midnight beta. So far on any beta, we are used to seeing paragraphs and paragraphs of changes for Mage, mostly buffing them. This time it's a single line, but it's a buff nevertheless. Basically, what this does is that Expanded Mind has been updated. Now, additionally, causes Arcane Orb to grant 2 stacks of Arcane Salvo. Arcane Salvo is basically the new mechanic. You're able to deal more damage when you have more stacks of Arcane Salvo. The fact that Arcane Orb also gives 2 stacks of Arcane Salvo means that you're able to get to that higher count of stacks much quicker, thereby buffing your damage. So it's a slight buff. I'm not going to say that it's the end of the world or anything. And in fact, actually, this is a good change. The fact that Arcane Orb now grants stacks of Arcane Salvo as well. I think it just makes the gameplay a bit more smoother and more streamlined. Um, but yeah, that's about it for Mage. Now, coming to the hot topic of the day, Paladin. Where do I even start? Uh, I am someone who's always enjoyed Holy Paladin. Uh, I'm not like a healer main or anything like that, but every now and then, if I want to fill in for a healer during a raid or maybe on a key, I prefer playing Holy Paladin because like I like the class fantasy of it. it has had a lot of ups and downs in previous patches. I think ever since the Shadowlands debacle with the I forget that ability's name where you get that big red aura around you, which would like massively heal everyone. Uh, Let me know in the comments if you are able to remember that name. And ever since then, Holy Paladin has had some ups, has had some downs, but it's never really been in a place where it was consistently enjoyable. And there has always been this sort of a divide where there is the range play style, there's the melee play style, and there have been like two sides of the community to it, where one of them likes the range play style and the other likes the melee play style. And for some reason, neither of the sides can ever come to an agreement. Personally, I don't mind playing either, but if you were to ask me, I would personally much prefer playing ranged in raids and melee in Mythic Plus, but there are definitely some dungeons where I would much rather play a ranged Holy Paladin just because of the sheer amount of swirlies on the ground and stuff. Um, but yeah, the changes that we see here, let's actually first read through the dev notes. Says, we're returning Crusader Strike as a baseline spell for Holy Paladins in this update with the intention of increasing moment to moment decision making and adding more variety to their rotation. We are introducing a second charge to Crusader Strike and look forward to your feedback on how that feels to play alongside Midnight's other updates. So, essentially, what they've done is they've added two charges to Crusader Strike. Now, if we read it further, it says Holy Shock no longer overrides Crusader Strike. Judgment cooldown has been increased. Crusader Strike charges are no longer decreased, which means they always stay at 2. Crusader's Might now causes Crusader Strike to reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock and Judgment. And then Holy Shock's cooldown is now 9.5 seconds, was 6 seconds. So essentially, what they've done is that they've increased the cooldown for Holy Shock and Judgment, and they've basically given the CDR on Crusader Strike cast. What this means is that you're going to want to be in melee pretty much permanently. And this means that anybody who enjoyed uh, the ranged playstyle for Holy Paladin, Blizzard has basically told them that, you can love yourself. Uh, Next up, we also see that Crusader Strike damage is increased by 20%, Crusader Strike cooldown increased by 25%, and then Shield of the Righteous now reduces the cooldown of Crusader Strike by 1.5 seconds. So, this essentially compounds on the issue. Now, there are two parts to it. Healer DPS in general on the beta has been extremely low. And the reasoning that Blizzard gave behind this is that we would like our healers to focus more on healing. And that's the reason they took away the interrupt, they took away a lot of the damage. And healers are basically doing, I don't know, something like 20% on the higher side of a DPS's overall damage. And buffing just Crusader Strike, which was one of the lower hitting abilities on Holy Paladin, is essentially doing nothing for them, right? The main value you're going to be getting out of Crusader Strike is essentially getting the CDR on Judgment and Holy Shock so that you can get more casts of it. And then essentially you've got Shield of the Righteous, reducing the cooldown of Crusader Strike. It's a nice feedback loop. Uh, the problem here is that at the moment, Holy Shock has an extremely high mana cost. So you're not going to be doing this in fights which are extremely long, because this will not help you do good sustained healing. What this means is that at the end of the day, you're going to be relying on Flash of Light. So all of these changes, at least in my opinion and based on what I've read in the Holy Paladin Discord, they all seem to be a bit tone deaf. Yes, a lot of them wanted Crusader Strike back, but not exactly how they wanted it back, right? They wanted it to be a cool interaction. They wanted it to be a meaningful button, and they wanted it to interact with their healing abilities. Now, what has Blizzard done? They have basically given Crusader Strike back, which they wanted, but it's not an impactful ability in the sense that it doesn't really do a lot of damage. You know, gives you CDR. And on top of it, it does not enrich the gameplay as much because you're hitting a button that doesn't do a lot of damage. I'm not super happy about these changes. And from what I've heard, neither is the Holy Paladin Discord. Personally, I kind of prefer having the flexibility to switch between the melee and ranged playstyle. This on top of the capping of Light of Dawn from last week's patches, I don't think I'm going to be playing Holy Paladin anytime soon, at least not until they fix some of these changes. All right, next up, we've got Discipline Priest. And I'll be honest, it doesn't sound like a good week for healers in general. So, what they've done is that Piety, the talent which essentially used to redistribute all of your overhealing across your allies, that's been nerfed. It used to be 20%, but now it's 15%. I mean, end of the day, you're still getting benefit out of it, right? Whether it's 20% or 15%. Any excessive heals on a single target or anything like that, or on a few targets, especially in raids when you've got your atonements out and perhaps you're like in a 30 man or something where you haven't been able to cover each and every one of them in atonements on time. This piety talent would essentially allow you to kind of have that little bit of extra coverage through overhealing. That is good. And that is actually also a big part of why Discipline Priest is quite strong when it comes to raids and keys. At the moment, Discipline Priest throughput is definitely lower than Resto Druid. So this further increases the gap, which in my opinion is not really a good thing. Next up, we've got preventive measures increasing the damage of Smite, Penance, and Holy Nova by 15% was 20%. So in last week's changes, they essentially nerfed the atonement healing, and now they have also gone ahead and nerfed the damage, which means that this has a knock-on effect on how much healing you're going to be doing through atonement, right? So this is another nerf, not just on the damage, but also on the amount of healing that they're going to be doing. And then finally, we've got the all-important change of Divine Aegis no longer showing on raid frames. Again, like I said, for Preservation Evoker, where's the reasoning behind it? Why are they doing this? There needs to be a bit more communication on this. That's just, that's how I feel about it. Holy Paladin got a oh, yeah, I'm still not over the Holy Paladin drama. Holy Priests have had a bug fix which was causing Benediction to heal for less than intended. So this is essentially a buff for Holy Priest. Next up, we've got Shadow Priest. Fixed an issue causing the damage over time effect from Shadow Word Madness to not properly account for damage modifiers when casting the ability while the debuff is already present. So this is essentially, again, a positive bug fix, which means that you can expect your damage to go up a bit. Uh, and then the second one is they fixed an issue which caused Tentacle Slam to engage enemies before it actually dealt damage. All right, next up, we've got Shaman changes. First things first, we've got Farseer Restoration. Primordial capacity once again increases the maximum stacks of tidal waves by one. So this was earlier removed, but and we'll see in the next set of changes why this has been sort of reverted. Um, but yeah, I think this is essentially in line with their intention to kind of improve the restoration gameplay and make it more fun. But we'll get to that in a bit. Next, we've got Surging Currents, and this is for Stormbringer. Surging Currents now increases the effectiveness of the Healing Surge or Chain Heal by 16% per stack, was 20%. So this is a slight nerf to Stormbringer. Chain Heal wasn't doing a lot of healing anyway. The fact that it has taken another like 4% nerf to its healing is kind of feels like kicking someone when they're down. So, you know. Next up, we've got Enhancement Shaman. Healing Surge reduced by 20%. Raging Maelstrom now causes Healing Surge and Chain Heal to gain 50% of Maelstrom weapon benefits, was 100%. And Chain Healing increased by 100. I don't know what is like, why are they increasing chain healing on enhancement shaman? It makes absolutely no sense to me. These are anyways off healing abilities, and I don't think that there is any scenario where an enhancement shaman is pressing chain heal. Even if they wanted to off heal, I don't think that they're pressing this unless there are some enhancement mains who can let me know whether this is something they press or not. As far as I'm aware, nobody presses chain heal as enhancement shaman. Next, we've got a bug fix. What this does is that they fixed an issue that caused Maelstrom weapon spending abilities to incorrectly do damage as if they consume 10 stacks of Maelstrom weapon when Raging Maelstrom is talented without overflowing Maelstrom. So this is a nerf. It's basically a bug fix which causes your damage to go down. You were doing more damage than intended, and now it's been kind of like brought down to where it's supposed to be. But what that means is that on the beta, you'll notice a drop in DPS for enhancement shamans. And then we've got Rolling Thunder grants the Nature Feral Spirit when Doomwind activates while Ascendance is talented. Okay, I guess. And yeah, here are the restoration changes. So they say we're aiming to add more interesting decisions to restoration, which has felt lacking in Midnight, as well as addressing a core talent issue, pushing gameplay towards a repetitive playstyle. To accomplish this, we are returning tidal waves to the talent tree, updating Ascendance with a different set of mechanics, and removing Whispering Waves. Essentially, what they've done is tidal waves, which I mentioned up here. Like you've got your Farseer also kind of changed so that it allows you to have like another stack of tidal waves. They've basically removed this. They had removed this, and now they're kind of adding it back. And in place of tidal waves, we had whispering waves, and now this has gone away. So essentially, this is like a slight return to the War Within playstyle, but let's continue reading. Ascendance has been redesigned, immediately heals allies within 20 yards and transform into a water ascendant for 15 seconds. While Ascended, Chain heals jumps to 3 additional allies with 10% healing reduced for all jumps. Healing Wave always critically heals and heals 1 additional ally at 50% effectiveness, and the mana cost of Chain Heal and Healing Wave is reduced by 25%. So, this is a good change. It kind of takes us back to the War Within playstyle of Restoration Shaman. Uh, but again, my bigger complaint over here is that the chain heal doesn't do a lot of healing, and they've also kind of like, nerfed it over here for Stormbringer. Uh, yeah, I don't know exactly how this is going to math out. Probably require a lot more testing to kind of see whether this has a positive effect or not. But just from a playstyle perspective, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to feel much better than the current playstyle that it has on beta. Next up, we've got Tidal Waves returns and has been updated. This is essentially what we covered before. Each cast of Riptide grants 1 stack of Tidal Waves, reducing the cast time of your next healing wave or chain heal by 20%, can accumulate up to 2 stacks. Now, what I'd prefer is, in addition to reducing the cast time, if it also increase the healing of healing wave or chain heal, right? So that would make Tidal Waves like a more impactful buff to track. And essentially what you can then do is you can plan your burst windows in a way that, all right, you always want to have 2 stacks of tidal waves. You hit that, not only does it bounce to additional allies because of this, but you also get additional healing from it. So I would have preferred if the change was something like that, but that's fine. It is what it is. Maybe the numbers are okay even with this change, but I just feel like having an increased heal portion to this would have made tidal waves feel a bit more better. Then we've got lava surge can no longer trigger when lava burst is not talented. Makes complete sense. Echo of the Elements and Primal Tide Core have changed positions in the talent tree. Okay. And Whispering Waves has been removed. All right. So that's all the changes. We've got a few minor changes for like PvP, and some UI changes as well. I'm not going to go over that. But all in all, that's all the class changes we have. Let me know what you think. I personally feel that a lot of these changes were not completely well thought of, especially when I think about Holy Paladin. It felt completely tone deaf. Discipline Priest, again, it's just getting back to back nerfs. And they just kind of like keep increasing the gap between Resto Druid. And on the topic of Resto Druid, they haven't addressed Resto Druid healing at all. Like right now on beta, there's only one healer that every healer is playing, and that is Resto Druid. Because it just has a massive amount of throughput. And I think it's been what, 3 weeks? In fact, since the starting, there has barely been any changes to Resto Druid. And all the other healers seem to be catching bad changes or nerfs. I guess in a way that's good for Resto Druid because it means that, they're going to be meta, but Come on, like we need other healers to play as well, right? Hope you liked the video. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. As I mentioned, I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers by the end of March. So if you do subscribe to my channel, it's going to mean a lot to me and it's going to allow me to continue making content for you guys. And once again, thanks a lot for watching the video. See you next time. Peace.